everyone, it's Erik with another science question for you. Today we're going to ask, why are there no dinosaur skeletons on Long Island? Where are those fossils? And to help us answer the question, I have a scientist, he's a glaciologist, his name is Adam Hepburn. He goes to Aberystwyth University, and he will help us answer the questions. But one thing you should know about Long Island is, if you look at the shoreline back there, you see these big rocks? Those are called glacial erratics, which means that at one point, this whole sky behind me was filled with glaciers. So to start with, how are glaciers formed and how do they mold the land? Adam?
Yeah, so glaciers are really powerful features and responsible for a lot of amazing landscapes you see all over Earth. They can be thought of as giant rivers of ice, sort of act like a giant bulldozer, and forming really distinctive landscapes. And this is mainly caused by how they flow downhill. They do so under their massive weight and thickness, and as they do so, they sort of erode and pick up material from beneath. So these could be rocks or sediments or anything like that. And this is then transported along with the glacier all the way down its length, which is why they sometimes look really dirty. They don't all look quite clean and nice, quite clean and like white and blue, but can often look really brown. And then at the foot of the glacier, where the ice is melting, this material is dropped. And over time, this can accumulate and form really big features such as moraines. There's many different types of moraines depending on how exactly it happens. But this is the main way in which glaciers, this sort of erosion and transport of material.
So now we know Long Island was formed by glaciers, but how thick were these actual glaciers? Much like the one behind.
Ice today in Antarctica is that thick, and in Greenland there's ice like 2.5 miles thick.
I don't think kids would really know how tall that is until they see a picture of it, to understand.
It's actually really hard to comprehend.
To try to illustrate, here I've taken a picture of Port Jefferson on the North Shore. We're going to try to imagine how it looked when there was ice sheets above it formed of glaciers. Here it is. Pretty scary, huh? In fact, Adam says that this isn't even high enough, but it might be realistic because the ice is lower at the sides. Another thing you'll find all over Long Island are these giant stones and rocks in the landscape. These are called glacial erratics, and they're basically rocks that were left there as the ice sheets retreated, the glaciers retreated back north. Another thing that happened to form the sound of Long Island is something called isostatic rebound or crustal rebound. This is what happens when the glaciers move away so quickly that the land takes hundreds of thousands of years to move back. Maybe Adam can tell us a little bit more about it.
Yeah, so Scotland was covered by glaciers during the Young Dryas around 16,000 years ago, and that's had the effect of obviously sinking Scotland, and it's now in a process, I think it's called isostatic rebounding. It's slowly coming back up, and
I didn't realize it took so long for it to happen, though.
Yeah, no, it happens over thousands of years.
It's incredible. So things can actually raise out of like sea level by themselves, over time. Yeah. So now I guess the question is, where were the dinosaurs in all this? Why are there no dinosaurs on Long Island?
So this is a really interesting question, because at the time of dinosaurs, around 260 million years ago, Long Island, as you and I know today, wouldn't have existed. During this time, America itself was only just beginning to separate from Europe, and so it would have all been beneath the sea, or the Atlantic rather. So Long Island itself only really began to form about 60,000 years ago, when a giant glacier covered much of North America during the Wisconsin glaciation. And so, as I said before, this glacier was depositing lots of material around its edges, and over time these sort of built up to form moraines. And this is principally what forms Long Island now, a series of interlocking moraines. So as the glacier melted and retreated around 16,000 years ago, as the Earth was getting a bit warmer, it left behind these moraines and then a large freshwater lake called Lake Connecticut. I hope I'm saying correctly. At this point, with glaciers melting around the world, sea levels were rising globally. And eventually the sea sort of reached this lake, breaching the land. And you then formed what today is Long Island Sound, with Long Island sort of jetting above sea level.
So now we know Dinosaur fossils are not on Long Island because Long Island wasn't there during the time of the dinosaurs and was later created by glaciers that created the land and filled it with water. One question I've always had, and I hope that Adam can answer, is it possible that one of these days glaciers will once again creep along over Long Island and change the way it looks again?
So yeah, no, of course. And it might not even be too far in the future. So as humans, we drive climate change, we're warming up the atmosphere over quite short timescales, and ice that exists today in Greenland and Antarctica is melting rather quickly in response. As this ice melts, the oceans rise as more water's been put into them, and so a big group of scientists called the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change or something is predicting around 1 to 3 feet of water sea level rise by in the next 80 years, and that's the sort of best case estimation. So it could be even higher. If this were to happen, much of South Shore would be underwater, which is something to think about. But on longer timescales, glaciers sort of advance and recede over millennia, and eventually, at some point, glaciation will take place again, and Long Island, as we know it today, will be potentially beneath the glacier. So yes, in the short term, and also yes in the long term.
Thank you, Adam, for helping us answer that question today. Kids, if you have any questions about glaciers or about fossils on Long Island, feel free to leave comments or email the library at reference@elwoodlibrary.org. And remember, there's a couple of museums on Long Island that have fossils, footprints, dinosaur footprints. That would be Garvey's Point Museum. If you have any questions, just contact me. And as usual, stay tuned for another science quest coming up soon, and we'll see you next month. Bye-bye.